the market's picking up here a little bit, so people might have had to run where the client was, and that's okay. We get that. So
Yeah, no problem. And
how's
it's
the
okay if
market
people
in
need to.
Branson and Orlando?
Well, Branson's heating up too a little bit. We've had a nice cold winter, and I think right around Christmas, people just kind of quit buying anything for a while. They just took a quarter off, but it's starting to heat up. People are busy in the office, and I don't know what's Orlando like, Erica.
So Orlando is kind of the way, it's kind of the same as it's been in Florida. Insurance has gotten really crazy, which has been causing a lot of people to do deals in other markets. Because even though the numbers make sense in some places, when they get that insurance quote, they run away real fast. Not
Hmm.
only that, but the insurance has gotten so high in Florida that a lot of people aren't even finding out till almost closing that their debt to income ratio gets thrown out of line when they get that insurance quote back, and they're not able to actually close on the loan. So
Wow.
realtors have had to pivot and had to start running these debt to income scenarios in the beginning during the due diligence to make sure that it will still pan out with these new insurance costs. So that's been like the biggest thing in Florida that I think a lot of realtors have really been struggling with. And lenders as well. It's just a different world here. Taxes have gone up a lot too. It's not stopping people from moving here, and it certainly isn't stopping people from buying. It's just kind of taking a little longer to sell properties that are over $700,000.
Yeah. Yeah,
Gotcha.
that's interesting.
So what's
Yeah.
interesting about this is that every market is unique and different and very, very special. And I think a lot of times we miss out on the opportunity to really sell the beautiful second home market that we live in. And a lot of us who begin to work with investors also kind of sometimes lose sight of all the people that want to buy in these beautiful second home markets, because what I realized very early in my career was that some people just want a rate of return, and some people want a second home that they can come to with their families, that they want to subsidize and be able to get some great tax benefit on it. And some people have, other intentions about it. They want to use them for charitable reasons. They want to have events there. It's just a place that they really don't care to use themselves at all. And they're looking for a specific cash flow goal or a rate of return goal. So the first best question that you could ask any investor that you're working with is, what is your goal? How can I serve you? Because a lot of us sometimes we want to jump in and teach people exactly what we think they want to know. But we found, and in my book, what I wrote, like, be crystal clear about your intended use of the property, because that alone will allow you to be one of the most successful agents in a second home destination. So before we start selling you guys on what we think you need to know, we have a pretty good idea, but let's talk with you guys a little bit about your market. So what are people buying in your market? If you're working with investors, what are they buying? What are you guys selling right now?
And before you do that, 1 second, we had some people join. So if
Yeah.
anybody needs food, drinks, please just get up. This is really casual. Grab some. We have some lunch. So please don't be hesitant to do that if you came in late. And let's let you guys answer the question, and then we'll pivot into Jeremy and Erica doing a very quick intro to who they are, just so you know, because they're both very credible sources. Jeremy is a business partner of mine. We've been in business now, Jeremy, April, it's gonna be 2 years.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my
Does it
gosh.
feel longer than that
It
or
has
shorter?
flown by, really.
Really? And then Erica
That's
and
awesome.
Jeremy have known each other for many years. And so I got connected to Erica through Jeremy. So they've done some really cool things in markets similar to ours, different, but similar. And so they're going to bring some good value to you guys, I think. And what they're doing across the country, I think, could connect some of you to investors and to other agents and to help you grow your business. That's the goal of this call today. So however many of you are investing yourself or working with investor clients, what are they buying? What are you seeing? Anybody want to share? Just try to yell, and if they can't hear you, I'll reiterate.
Airbnb world or
Just in general, in the investing world.
out of state?
So second home and maybe using it for short-term rental. Okay. So, one of the things, and you guys, I know, research, Jeremy, we've talked about the Coeur d'Alene and surrounding areas. Lots of second home, destination opportunities. What do they do with that when they're not here? They typically try, rent it out. So there is a short-term rental market, although, there's some things happening to try to make sure that we can continue to have that in our market. Cause there's, some roadblocks, but you've been through that before, Jeremy. So you know how that goes.
Yeah, we can actually teach you how to turn advocacy and zoning into tremendous lead magnets for you. Like anytime there's a problem in your marketplace, that is an opportunity for you as an agent. And we'll try to reserve some time to go over some of that because
Yeah.
that's what launched my career in my market was getting active with advocacy, which is
Yeah.
why in my book I wrote an entire chapter on advocacy, teaching you how to be the local advocate. So actually, let's go ahead and do some intros if you want.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I started selling investments in 2006. That's when I started in the real estate world. And I had 18 months of learning how to become a great real estate agent, which it takes about that long, doesn't it? And then the market crashed. It was 2008. And literally, like we complain about no inventory. Try working in a market, maybe some of you had, where there's absolutely no buyers and no bank will give you a loan. I closed 4 deals that year. So in a down market, you will never convince me otherwise that the best thing that you could possibly do is go get education. I started taking classes. I wasn't showing properties. So I started taking classes and I learned that investors were the only people that were buying regardless of any market. So I had this massive aha. If I'm going to never have to worry about where my dinner is going to come from ever again, I'm going to begin to work with investors. And I told myself, I'm going to serve millionaires until I become one. And that's exactly what happened. I started off serving millionaires and being the best source of information for them. I learned in one conversation how to win somebody over in 2 minutes because I didn't like wearing a tie. And I was like 30 years old, and the average age of the real estate agent in my area was like 65. So nobody would pay attention to me. There was no credibility whatsoever. So I had to grow a beard and quit, wearing a tie and learn, the right words to say to an investor. I had to learn their language. And I told myself, if I can convince this person in 2 minutes that I know what I'm talking about, then I will never have to wear a tie again. So, my whole life, the sum total of all the successes in my life is the fact that I didn't want to wear ties or shave anymore. So, but now you know what motivates me. But it's actually worked because I began to work with these investors and I got so busy, I had to bring on an admin. And that person wanted to learn the short-term rental world. And then she got so busy, we both had to bring on new buyers agents. And then we grew from there. And within 4.5 years, we had taken over as the #1 independent real estate, bit market in our town because nobody was focusing on investors. And short-term rental investors, whether they're making wild profit or not, and don't feel like if the investment opportunities aren't like phenomenal in your market, that's okay, because that means nobody's paying attention to it. And you should, and we're going to teach you how, because right now in established markets like Orlando, like Gatlinburg, these places have been saturated and the numbers don't work for years. But we can still teach you how to sell property in those areas because HGTV has taught us that real estate is sexy. Everybody wants to invest in real estate. But what we want to teach you today is how to make sure that you're using accurate data in your marketplace to win over those investors, because that's going to set you apart from everybody else. We want to make sure that you have a legendary script to be able to talk to people on that first meeting that you have with them so that you can grow a beard if you want and win people over in 2 minutes. And we want to be sure that you know how to sell your market. And we don't want to, and the cool thing about this is we're going to use our data tool and we're going to use some theory that's worked from us in the past. And we hope to be able to show you some tips on how to sell your market better. You guys will always be the experts in your market. I don't want you to think we're coming in to tell you how to do things, but we're going to take some of your input, ask you some questions, combine that with the tools that we've got, and send you out of here today, hopefully with a couple tools. Does that sound good?
Totally.
Okay.
Cool. Let's go.
Okay.
Erica.
Yeah,
Yes.
Erica, let's give them an intro from you.
All right, I'll keep it pretty high level. Hi, I'm Erica, and I didn't grow a beard to convince people that they should work with me, but
See?
I started out in real estate when I was 18 years old, and my first real estate picture looked like the missing child on the back of a milk carton, and people
Oh,
would make
no.
fun of me. I was a Coldwell Banker office. I was the only child working there, and so I would go to shop at Ann Taylor with my grandmother and have her dress me like an older lady, and I'd wear a fake engagement ring to convince people I was older than I was, so they would actually pay attention to me. So that was my struggle of having to fake it till you make it when I started out in real estate. But I was actually fortunate to have some really great mentors along the way, my first 7 years. So I started in 2002. So I had some time to learn the industry before the market collapsed. In Florida, it started around 2008. But I mentored with a large commercial broker in my market, and I sold commercial real estate for quite a few years. And I also worked with residential investors coming to Florida from New York, investing in real estate. And then the market collapsed in 2008. I lost my home. I lost everything. I had to leave West Palm Beach and move to Orlando. And for me to move away from the beach was heartbreaking. And I felt like my life was falling apart. There was no work. And like Jeremy said, there was no work. Nobody was buying anything. So I had to go get a job. And I had to get a job, and I found one with a short-term rental property manager over in the Disney area. And I didn't know anything about short-term rentals. I didn't even know they existed, to be honest with you. Back then, they were only in the classifieds. There was no Airbnb or anything. And who was actually staying in them were people from UK and Canada going in their Disney vacations. So my job was to go into these homes where they were staying on vacation and convince them to buy the house they were staying in. Well, I was getting really good at convincing them to buy the house and turning them over to an agent. I was like, I need to be that agent. Like, these people are buying real estate when nobody else is buying real estate. I was like having these, like my brain was exploding. I'm like, there's money to be made. And it was a horrible economy. And I realized that international still had money and they were spending it on short-term rentals. But back then, short-term rentals weren't looked at as investment properties like they are now. So the agents that were selling it were just selling it with the bonus of you can use it when you're not renting it, or when you're not using it, you can rent it out. It pays for itself. With my commercial background, I was looking at it from an investment perspective. So I started building models around it, building up a clientele, started my own local office, grew it from there, and became one of the top brands in my market for short-term rentals. I did that for about 12 years, up until 2017. 10 years, because I started short-term rentals in 2007. It started with just internationals looking for a vacation home, and it really turned into serious investors buying these, up to like funds buying these. In the time I was in this asset class, it was wild. So I left the sales side in 2018 to build tools for us agents to be able to sell these better to investors, because that was a big gap in the industry. I was only able to work with 2 to 3 investors at a time, sometimes 4 or 5 if they were good investors. But there's a lot of upfront legwork to be done with pro formas and models and numbers and all this stuff. So my goal was to go out and figure out a way to, streamline that for us. During that time, I was also a real estate investor. After I got myself back together and back on my feet, I started investing in mobile home parks across Georgia. And I built up a large portfolio of mobile home parks, which I had a successful exit from in 2022, which was great. Proving out a lot of our models for exit strategies too. So all of that we're going to kind of teach you about, but that's my background. Also became a data scientist to be able to build these. So really heavy into data and mixing it with real estate and financial models. And when we get all those things and put it together, it really like changes everything. So we're going to teach you about all this today. And I appreciate you guys being here. I'm pretty sure you haven't heard anything like this before. So stick around with us to the end and we're going to show you some cool stuff. So I'm gonna kick it back to you, Jeremy, and I'll share my screen.
Yeah, while you're loading that up, let me ask you guys this question. How many of you own short-term rentals right now? Nice. Congrats. Good job, guys. How many of you go on vacation? So it should be 100% of you. If you're not going on vacation, you need to go on vacation. But that illustration speaks to the fact that everybody is using this product, especially in a down market, because the vacation rental industry broke out in the worst real estate economy in history. And it did so because it gave the people who are using it the ability to pool their resources, the ability to cook their meals inside their property. So the short-term rental industry tends to be very recession resistant. And because we all know how to go on vacation, it is the gateway drug to real estate investing. Because you don't have to know really foundations, you don't have to know roofs. All you really have to know is what you like when you go on vacation. And if you can help people provide that, then it's very easy for them to begin to invest. And the first place that you'll want to look for investors is in your current database. And we're going to give you some tools today to be able to reach out to those people first, because it's low hanging fruit. You already have relationships with those people. And we're also going to show you some data that you can use to introduce yourself to new investors and become a thought leader in your area. So does that sound like a good time?
We're ready.
Okay,
right.
well, kick it off, Erica.
Okay, great. So this is called this method of selling real estate is called data-backed agent. It's a new method that you can use when you're working with investors, and we're going to teach you how to close more investors with data. So who are we? We're the only B2B short-term rental data solution for real estate professionals that's backed by coaching. So we serve you guys, the real estate agent. We don't serve the end investor. That means everything we build and do is for you, which makes us very different than a lot of the other data tools that are on the market. Some of the problems we solve for you are how to add value to your future and existing clients, how to help you capture more business with short-term rental and mid-term rental mastery, how to help you keep your business by privatizing your lead, and we'll talk more about what that is later on, and how to help you increase your net worth by default. If you just do everything Jeremy does, you'll definitely increase your net worth by default. He is so great at short-term rental and scaling out his wealth that way. So we've served a lot of investors over the years, and our database of real estate investors is hovering around 25,000 right now. And most of these are short-term rental, mid-term rental investors. And we've learned so much from them last year, especially. So I want to share with you what these investors who are your potential future clients taught us last year. The first thing is that we need to understand who they are. Who they used to be and who they are today are two different things. So your short-term rental investor today is a higher net worth individual that is very busy. And because they're very busy, they're really looking for you to be their easy button. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. They can also be a fund. There's a lot of real estate funds now that are starting to invest in short-term rentals that would have never touched them 5 years ago. Short-term rental has become an asset class that's recognized by large multi-billion-dollar funds at this point. So it's now the type of asset class that is being paid attention to, and you can pick up those funds as your client if you know what you're doing. I've worked with them. Jeremy's worked with them. There's tons of them out there forming every day, and ones that already exist. They also expect you to know hard numbers at this point because these are sophisticated investors that it's essential that you understand working with numbers instead of just opinions. They expect you to save them time. And like I mentioned earlier, you should be their easy button. And what they already have before they get to you in their possession is Zillow, AirDNA, ChatGPT, and Google. So there's a lot of stuff you can find out with those 4 sources, a lot of it. And you can be sure that they are using those tools to research your market and research the inventory there before they even get to you. So they know stuff when they're calling you on the phone. They do need you for your local market expertise, your contacts, and any private inventory that you can help them find. But they're also going to need you for more reasons than that, which we'll talk about. One of the sad things we learned last year about these investors is that many of them said that they feel burned by agents over the last few years. Prices went up so fast, and a lot of new agents jumped into the industry over the last 2 to 3 years and were just selling anything to anyone. And it came to a point where a lot of these agents, and I'm not saying they did it on purpose, they just didn't have the experience or the foundation necessary to do it any other way, is they use sales hype to sell these investment properties, and they really had no basis for the numbers that they guaranteed or promised, and that doesn't work anymore. Investors want more than sales hype. They've already been burned by that, so they're not listening to it anymore.
And for that reason, Erica, sorry if you don't mind me jumping in, they're becoming very suspicious of data tools that are out there that are a little bit too forgiving, right?
Yep.
So the need for accurate data has actually increased.
Yeah, it's one of the number one things they're looking for. So they use data. And on that point, they're using data to figure out which market to invest in, to figure out what to buy in that market. And the big disconnect is that most agents are not using data. So you have these clients that are backing their decisions with data and getting connected to agents that are not. And you can see why there's a major trust issue there when what they've learned in data doesn't match with what agents are telling them. It starts to create trust issues, and they're really looking for agents to level up in that way. they have high standards for agents. Like I said before, they want them to be on the same page as them, the investor. And these investors are also investing thousands of dollars into coaching programs to teach them how to invest. These aren't just like, random investors that took a $99 course online with Carlton Sheets 15 years ago and want to flip a house and they want to like lowball everything. These are high net worth investors spending $8, $9, $1 million or more that spent $15,000, $20,000 on a real estate coach to teach them how to do it. These are great.
There's nothing
clients.
wrong with Carlton Sheets classes. They work,
I do like
Erica.
Carlton
I mean,
Sheets. I
took them all and
I
learned a
did
lot.
too. I'm just gonna throw it out there. Like I do like Carlton Sheets. I learned a lot. But that bred a lot of investors that were out there like making lowball deals. And sometimes agents think in their mind investors equal a lot more work or they equal people lowballing. And what I want you to understand is that short-term rental investors are not that kind of investor. They're looking for a really high performing classy property that's going to do well on a hospitality level. So it's a different client than just a regular investor. And a lot of promises were made to them by agents and not many of those promises were delivered on. And so we're dealing with a situation where it's like they have a really toxic ex-boyfriend or girlfriend, and now they're coming to us as the new one, and we have to overcome their trust issues. And so that's where we're at with today's investors.
And that's how we do it. We do it with data, not our opinions. I've always trained my agents that you can have an opinion as long as it's backed by data.
Yep.
And so, these investors now, the best thing that we can sell them isn't a property. The best thing we couldn't sell them is not even ourselves. The best thing that we can sell them is peace of mind, that in that first 2-minute conversation that they have chosen the right partner to help them increase their wealth. Because we have to stop thinking about selling individual properties and start thinking about creating clients for life. Because when we do that, I promise you, investors are like truck drivers. They're really hard to break into that niche, but once you do, they're loyal. It's like a gang and they have friends, and you will have so much business that, I actually created a personality test in my independent real estate brokerage to weed out the cobras, to make sure that people weren't just production driven. Because if we can help you have the tools to be able to win somebody over and help them make a solid investment, you'll never have to market ever again once you begin to adequately use these tools.
That's truth. So these investors are looking for a new gold standard, and that gold standard is going to look like this. Right now we have cap rates that are pretty much in alignment with interest rates in some markets, but if you're borrowing debt at the same interest rate that you're buying a property on at the cap rate, that's just going to be breaking even. So what do I mean by that? Cap rates need to exceed interest rates for these investment properties to make sense. So let's say, for example, we could have bought in Orlando 4 years ago or 3 years ago. We could have got a property that was producing a 6% cap rate, right? And I remember the days where I used to tell investors that that was a decent return, but that's when interest rates were at 2%. So there was a 4% spread there where you were actually making money, but now we're borrowing debt at 8%. So that 6% cap rate that I would have said was a good deal 4 years ago, I would never sell that today to an investor needing that same product because it's going to lose money straight out of the gates because the numbers don't work. So
I might sell that product if
Jeremy
I knew
might.
I might if I knew that they wanted to use the product themselves. If they were going to use that product for 4 weeks out of the year, they're saving money by not having to rent that vacation amount. They've let me know that they don't need to make a rate of return on it. They want to subsidize their income, but at least now we have the options to be able to provide the product that our customer is wanting.
Exactly. Yeah. So how you sell it looks different. And that's very true, Jeremy. So they definitely need and want better quality income data. That's one of their biggest complaints right now, as investors are saying they don't have access to good, reliable data. The products that are on the market for them are just simply basically for entertainment purposes at this point. They want an agent of a higher standard than the one that burned them. They also are looking at creative deal structures. And what do I mean by that? They're looking at seller finance subject to interest rate buy downs. They're looking at how to structure things as a buy box and as a whole on what to buy in certain markets that's different than it was 3 years ago. So other ways to purchase off-market inventory, creative stuff, not just here's MLS and this is what I'll sell you. They're very open to all these other ideas right now because it's a different market and it calls for different ideas and creative sales tactics. They really like midterm rentals. And those of you that aren't paying attention to midterm rentals, we're going to show you today why you should be. These are such a classy investment. And they are really easy to sell to an investor because they're insulated in most markets from all the short-term rental regulatory stuff that's going on, because they exceed that. They typically are beyond 30 days or 31 days. So we'll talk more about that. And these investors, like I said earlier, they're paying for knowledge. Most of them have a coach or a mentor or some type of education that they're plugging themselves into because they don't want to mess it up and they have to take responsibility for their own investment. So when they call you, here's the standard of what they expect you to know. In the first 2 minutes, you should be able to answer these questions and you should be able to cite how you know this information. If you are struggling to answer these questions, we're going to show you how you can, but this is the conversations that they're having is, hi, which markets, I've been looking at other markets and I want to know how your market compares to this other market. So in other words, they're asking which markets have the highest return right now, and they're looking for that. Some of them that really just like your market don't care if yours doesn't have the highest return. But some of these investors just want to know how to get the highest return and why they should invest in your market. Give them good reasons. They want to know how you're underwriting these properties that they're sending you from the MLS. Like when they ask you, like, how much money could this generate, or is this a good deal? They want to know, like, why you're giving them the answer you're giving them, other than just you think so. What features should their short-term rental have? So when we're showing them these properties, or we're trying to discuss with them how to allocate a percentage of their budget towards certain things, why are we suggesting that? And where should that money be going? How much income could these properties generate? Can they get X cash on cash return? Which product in your market is the most saturated product? Because they want to make sure they're not buying the most saturated and competitive product. Which properties and locations in your market are top earners? And who can manage my property? So let's be honest. If I called you today as your investor and I asked you these questions, are you currently using any reliable data source to answer these questions? Or would you just be giving me an opinion? And you don't even have to answer that. It's a rhetorical question.
Well, I'll jump in. I'll answer
yeah.
it because I love to answer rhetorical questions.
Great.
One of them is, so as a real estate agent, we want to be the source of the source, right? Because we want to keep that liability protection for ourselves and our broker. And there's 9 different sources potentially there. So we want to be able to direct people to one place that's a third party source that allows us to answer all those questions factually, because that's going to give that investor peace of mind. Now, you'll get so good, you'll get to the point where you can just rattle this off. But then what you want to do is privatize that lead instantly, right? You want to be able to offer that investor something that's above and beyond your great knowledge, right? You want to be able to give them something for free. They can go and they can purchase data from AirDNA or some of these other sites. But what would it be like in your business if you had the opportunity to give them free data that was white labeled with your name on it, that gave you the ability to add value where other people in your marketplace may not be able to do that? That's
Yep.
what we're talking about today, is setting you up with the tools so that people don't have to trust you. They can like you and they will trust you,
Yeah.
but they don't have to.
And they
because
do
you're
have to
data
like
backed.
you.
Yeah.
Exactly. So let's talk about now on that topic, Jeremy, let's talk about how we capture these investors, because everybody wants that, $800,000 client or more who's going to buy a few of those houses every year. I know those are the clients I was going after. So first we have to become an investor magnet, right? To attract investors, we have to have something that they're attracted to. And what does that look like? We have to have something they need, and we have to know something they don't. And that's definitely going to get them walking through our front door. Understanding these advanced sales techniques that Jeremy and I are talking about, backing it with data, providing investment options to them in your market that make sense and that you can have a conversation around. Being a thought leader is critical here. So the person producing the most content and the topics around that content is going to bring in so many leads. And if you're leading your content with numbers and data, you are by default going to attract the investors, because investors are drawn to data like a magnet. As soon as they start hearing data and they start looking at a story being told around it, they tune in immediately. I'm such a sucker for that. Like the second someone shows me data and they can prove something with numbers, I'm in and I'm listening. And that's how almost all investors are. So imagine putting out in your market YouTube content, Facebook, Instagram. I don't know if you're all on TikTok or not. I haven't been able to bring myself to that yet, but TikTok, if you're there, wherever you're at and you're producing content, at least 50% of your content should be focused around leading it with numbers and data. And this will increase your business and attract those investors to you that are looking for that. Because if all you're talking about is good school zones, investors are not going to be thinking about that if they're buying short-term rental properties. The only reason they might think about it is because maybe when they want to exit from it in the future, it's important. But that's it. So let's get into the head of the short-term rental investor and what their journey looks like before they get to you, so you can understand what they've been through and how to capture them. So it all starts with them having a thought, and thoughts are things. And as soon as they have that thought about short-term rentals or mid-term rentals or investment properties, their first question is, how much money can it make? How much money can I make? What's the income potential? That's immediately where they go. And once they have that thought around what is the income potential, they get on Google and they start Googling about what is the income potential. And this is called the research phase. They start looking for more information on how all of this works. Now imagine if you captured them here. If you captured them in the research phase before they ever go anywhere else, you've got that person. But here's why it's been so difficult for us as agents to capture them in the research phase, because big PM and big tech are the ones paying billions of dollars to capture these leads. And we're competing with them at this stage. I don't know about you guys, but as an agent, I didn't have billions of dollars of venture capital behind me to spend on lead generation. I still don't, okay? And so in order for us to capture that lead before all these other companies get it and try to sell it back to us, or get it and try to sell it to our competitors, we've got to be smarter and we've got to be faster and we've got to produce something that they're not. So that's how we're going to get ahead of this client. And so that Zillow and AirDNA and Rabu and all these other guys that are actually monetizing your client right now are getting them. And we're also going to talk about, and this goes into privatizing your lead, because every one of these guys is going to sell your lead to your competitor. So that's even more reason why we don't want our clients getting the information from these places. So they go here, and the next stage after that is they start finding experts. So they find out what they need to know on those other sites I just showed you. Then they get plugged into an expert. This can be a coach, this can be a guru, a Facebook group, and they just get plugged into that community. And that community is where they start getting their initial education foundation around how short-term rentals work, what's a good market to buy in, who they should work with, and they really start following whatever the crowd tells them. And so sometimes they might find their way to you, but usually they don't, because typically from the expert stage, someone there plugs them into an agent, and this is how they find their agent typically. And then that agent obviously gets the deal, and that's where the acquisition happens. So we want to intercept these leads in the research phase, not further down the pipeline, because we want to capture them and we want to work with those leads. And the question here that we've been talking about since the beginning is, how do you privatize the lead so you're not buying it back from Zillow or those other guys, or losing it altogether? And really that's where we come in. And this is what it looks like to do that. Let's say we get that lead and we have no tools for them. We're a salesperson and we have no tools. That's why they went to Zillow. That's why they went to AirDNA and all these other places to begin with, because they needed something that we didn't have. And remember, I told you, to be an investor magnet, you have to have something they need and know something they don't. And they come to us and we're sitting here with our toolbox of MLS. Okay, and that's not very impressive to an investor. We've got to shift that mindset of who we are from being a salesperson with no tools for them to becoming an advisor that does have tools for them. And truly, this is where we come in. we are able to provide you with all the tools that these investors are looking for and overnight turn you into a one-stop investor shop. No, I'm not here to pitch you and sell you anything. I'm actually here with Jeremy to show you some really cool stuff about how we use these tools. If you do like it and you are interested, great. We'd love to, talk to you more about it, but we're just going to show you how powerful this is. Before we do that, on this next slide, we are going to show you a 1-minute video of investors, your current and future clients, the exact clients that you're going after, a video of them seeing our technology tools, our data tools, and reacting to it in real time. And Morgan on the video is one of the agents using our tools. She's in Asheville, North Carolina, and she's showing it to her investor clients for the first time that she connected with through us. So this is a 1-minute video. It'll be real quick, but it's really great to see.
How
All
do you
right.
feel that this compares to the other data tools that you've used in the past?
I think this is great because I think what the other data tools I think do is they kind of just like stay at a very high level. So it doesn't go down to like sort of this level of, zip code, definitely not by property type or bedroom size. So like the fidelity of the data is great. The fact that I think you can basically kind of say, this is kind of the cash on cash return I'm looking for, and then start analyzing, like that's great, right? Because that's really what I'm looking for, because I'm agnostic to the location that I want to invest in.
How do you feel that this data tool compares to other data tools, as you said?
I'm kind of going through AirDNA, and I do like this better, to be honest. This whole formula that you guys have with getting the commission on, like the buyer isn't losing anything. They're only gaining everything. Like nothing's coming out of my side.
Exactly.
I'm getting data, then I can get a realtor. Now the realtor will help me get a place. You buy a place, still nothing comes out from me. It's all off of the seller.
Yep. So these investors are super excited when they see our system and our tools and they find agents that are working with these kind of tools. So this is the part of the presentation where it's called Sell Me Your Market. This is where we go and we're going to show you our tool and we're going to take a look at Coeur d'Alene and we're going to just take a look at, I don't know anything about your market. So to be honest with you, I looked at it one time and it was with Cari for a few minutes. And that's the only other time I've looked at it. So we're going to actually explore your market together in our data tool. And if you guys have questions, feel free to jump in. I don't know if Jeremy, you want to start with anything, but otherwise
we're going to be learning with you at this stage of the game. And so the goal here for the next few minutes is to build some sales scripts so that you guys can leave out of here with some great sales scripts that you can use to be able to start winning your clients over or start getting into more conversations with investors. Like Erica said, we're not here to sell you a tool. We're here to use data to show you the importance of data in your business so that you can see how it applies, so you can turn it into instant revenue for yourself. So let's dig in.
Great. So I've got Coeur d'Alene up. Before I jump into that, I want to show you kind of where it starts. There was a situation where when I was working with a lot of investors, the initial conversation was something like, hi, I'm looking for a 25% cash on cash return in your market. Can I get that? And I'm an agent and I'm like, well, I'm sure you can. It's impossible for me to know exactly which properties you're going to get that in, but I know you can. And so it put me in a situation where I had to start looking for inventory on MLS that I knew could possibly do really well, but that would take me hours. And then I have to analyze it on a manual spreadsheet. I could spend 8 hours in one day just trying to research for one investor. That was not a scalable approach to working with these clients. So the first thing we've done, now you're going to see a lot of markets on here that are all different places because it's national data on here. Most of this is local to you when you're using it. But the first thing we do is we ask an investor, like, when they get to our tool, this is white labeled to you. This is my tool, as you can see. It's my URL, my picture. There's a portal and it asks them to get into my tool. How much do you have available for a down payment? And what's your annual cash flow goal? What we discovered is that if you know these two numbers right here, you can actually reverse engineer them into a cash on cash return. So you can run different scenarios. And if you have the data on every single short-term rental on the market, you can actually apply those mortgage scenarios to every one of those and discover which cash on cash returns they can meet that with, instead of having to guess and figure it out. So we immediately are able, the second they log in, to match them to buy box and market opportunities where they can hit their potential cash flow goals. And I just did this in it literally 2 seconds. Actually, my investor did it without me having to do it for them, logged in and is now looking at all these opportunities. So that's how they start off. They start off by logging in and getting exactly what they're looking for is opportunities and stuff that matches their buy box and cash on cash return. So I want to go ahead and put Coeur
Hey,
d'Alene in
Erica,
here. Yeah.
really quick, I just wanted to make a point about this.
Yeah.
The thing I love about things like this, and what I love about short-term rentals, is even if somebody isn't going to buy something here, but if you can supply the masses this kind of data, and then they can say, I know where I want to go, you can still utilize your real estate experience and license to make money through referral fees. I mean,
100%. Yeah.
our whole real estate world, and we're seeing this just in the progressiveness of real estate brokerages and everything, is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. We don't have to just think about using our real estate license to earn income in our local markets anymore. So I just wanted to bring that up because I think that's huge.
No, that's a huge point because like there's a lot of us out there that if I can make, an extra 2 or 3 deals a month just on referral fees and I didn't have to close those deals,
Yeah.
I'm all about that life. Like I'm here for that. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what we do is we don't limit it to our market. And even more so than that, if you find an investor who's come across your path and your market really just isn't the right fit, let's not try to fit a square peg into a round hole. Let's find that square hole and like put the pieces together for them. And they're really going to respect you more for that than if you're trying to push them into something that's really not right. But how do we even know if it is or it isn't right? That's where we're going to start with. So it all starts with analyzing it, and everything I'm showing you, your investor can do without you or with you at the same time. But you don't have to be present for this. Your investor gets access to this all the time. So it starts by analyzing your market. And I like to use the map because the map's easy for people to understand. It's colorful and we get it. So this is showing us right now all of the short-term rental and mid-term rental opportunities in the market of Coeur d'Alene by the filters I have set here. So if I turn everything on, it's going to show you everything that's in your market of what's going on. Now, we do have a data cleansing process that I want to explain to you real quick, because it's really important that you understand this, because this is why this is a superior tool than the other ones on the market. If your client was just going to go to AirDNA and pay for their data, they're getting access to data that's basically scraped on a mass level and thrown onto a map with very little data science processes behind it. And there's really not a lot of data in there that's clean enough to make sense of. So what do I mean by that? If we have 30% of these listings on on Airbnb and the other OTAs that they were just listed or they haven't even been listed for a full year, which means we don't know how they're going to perform in all seasons, they should not be making it into our data set because those are going to give a false either an overly optimistic or an overly conservative result to the rest of the data set. We remove all that data. So you don't have to go through AirDNA like your client is currently doing and pick apart one by one all of these listings. We remove all of it. So we're only working with the cleanest and purest data of listings from these OTAs that have a trailing 12 behind them and that also are valid short-term rental listings, and they have reviews. So you're actually working with the cleanest data in the industry right now, and your client's getting that simply because you're providing it to them. It's like
we're working on getting it blessed by the Pope, but we haven't got that far yet. We're almost there. It's Catholic data. I mean, it's really good at following the rules.
There you go.
So
There you go. It follows the rules. And that's important though. Like, I know it sounds overkill, but it matters to your investor, right? It matters to your investor because that's what they're complaining about right now is like the data is not good out there. Well, I have something that is, and here's why. And they will ask you. And so it's important to know. So what's really interesting is that we have all these quintiles from highest earning to lowest earning. As an investor, if I came to you and I asked you the question, where should I buy an investment property in Coeur d'Alene? Where? What would you tell me and how would you know to answer that? Most likely you have some idea in your head of what you think they should buy, but that may or may not line up to what actually is happening in the data. So what I do, and when I'm working with an investor, is I say, I don't know, let's find out together. Let's go look at the data together. Or the data tells me X, Y, and Z. So we start by saying, in order to sell somebody a high earning property, we need to know where those high earners are. So we turn off everything that's not a high earner and we look for the patterns of where these high earning properties could potentially be. And we see patterns of these locations. If you see, there's a whole bunch of them. I'm assuming this is your downtown Over
Yep.
here, this looks like a downtown. Okay, you've got a hospital with a huge cluster of them along this area. Like, I don't know what's going on over here.
It's
and
kind
you
of
have
a second kind of town area, honestly, condos, that's a really, yeah, that's a big short-term rental area as well. Kind
Yeah,
of a
so
second
there's,
downtown, if you will.
yeah, there's a lot of high earners there. And then up in here, like I
That's
see,
interesting.
this is
Yeah.
interesting up in here. Like there's like, it follows this little like pattern up around the, it looks like a residential area maybe, but there's a lot of short-term rentals that are high earners over here. Now we can click on them. We can look at them if we want to see them on the OTA, what they look like. It's a beautiful property. So this is a 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom, high earner in Coeur d'Alene in this area. So why am I doing this? So the reason I'm doing this is because I'm your realtor right now, and I want to paint a picture for you of one, where you should be looking to invest, and two, what type of product it is to be a high earner. Because I want to sell you a high earner. If I don't know what it even looks like, then how am I going to know what to tell you what to budget for in terms of renovations and interiors and all that? So we want to understand the product. So if you don't yet know your market this intimately, it's a great time for you to do this exercise on your own and learn about all the short-term rental product that's out there in your backyard, so that when you do get these calls from investors, you are already understand this and you can back everything you're telling them with data. So that's the first thing, like, where should I invest? And look, we have some
So
high
you
earners.
said something interesting to me, Erica, when we were talking on the phone, and that's actually where you're going, is over towards Post Falls and around the river. And you said this is really interesting because there's some pretty expensive homes around the river that haven't sold. They've been staying on the market for a while. If you actually knew how high of earning potential they have, because look at, they're the green, you could actually go and start marketing that way or reach out to investors and get those properties sold. And I thought that was really interesting because there are properties just being sold as properties. And for whatever reason, people thinking that those don't have potential because maybe they cost more money, but that doesn't matter necessarily because the rate of return isn't indicative of the price of the property, right?
Exactly. Like here's
Yeah.
one I just found
Wow.
along the river, and it's
17 cap. Wow.
17% cap rate. And let me explain to you how this cap rate is calculated so you guys understand. This means that if I were to buy this property right now, this exact property or something just like it, and I hit these revenue numbers, which this is exactly what this is hitting, I would be getting a 17% cap rate in today's market, because the cap rate formula is basically net operating income divided by purchase price. We apply the purchase price of today, not when this person bought it in the past, because we're not living in the past, we're living in the present. So how great would it be to show your investor when they say, where's the best returns? Well, here's an example of a location along the river with an incredible return, a 2-2, probably a cottage that's getting these numbers. It's right on the lake. This is a beautiful property. Now, I don't know what it would cost to buy this, right?
Do you guys know what would it roughly cost to
anyone
buy
know?
something like that?
Anybody pull that up? Do we know where that, does it show, it doesn't show address or anything?
We
It
have it
might.
on our back end part of the
Okay.
data, but let me zoom in and see if we can pull an address if we
Pull that
we
up.
look real close. Or like basically just this location, typically what something like this would be going
Like a
for.
like a
JT, you know off the top of your head?
2-2.
It's probably
Anybody
this
know off
one.
the top of
Yeah,
your head?
it does have some addresses there.
12059. I'm not sure what this street is. It's right off Riverview.
West
Anyway,
Riverview Drive.
whatever
Okay.
the purchase price is in our system has a purchase price attached to this of what it would what it thinks it would be selling for based on the realtor.com data.
Okay.
And it's putting it at a 17 cap. It would be really easy for me to make a sale with, or tell my client, this is what we need to focus on. We're focusing on lakefront or riverfront, sorry. I want my client to be on the river because this is where we're getting the highest returns right now. Even in today's market where prices are higher, we're still getting a 17% cap rate. Now, that will survive the mortgage. So if you're borrowing debt at an 8%, you're still a 9%, you're up 9% on this. So I'm sorry, you're up around that 9% on this. So that's a great opportunity. So we look for those nuggets where things work, and sometimes there's a lot of them, sometimes there's not. Here's a 16 cap. So here's another one that's a 16 cap. It's another 2-2 on the river. I'm seeing a pattern already of what's working in your market. And it's not, and these are all riverfront properties that are about, 2 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, or 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. So they don't need to be huge. they do need to be riverfront to get those really high returns. That's a data point immediately I can create an entire marketing campaign around. That's a data point immediately that I can use to get my investors to buy into a riverfront property. Now, you're going to run into investors that have a certain budget, and you know, a lot of them can spend more if there's a reason to. And so like you really have to give them the reason of why they're going to be investing more money into your market. So if they say, I want to invest into your market for $500,000, well, that's not going to get you a 16 cap. That's going to get you maybe a 6, maybe a 4. And if that's all you want, that's fine. But if you're looking for the highest return in my market, here's the price we need to be at. Now we have data around all that. I want to show you something real quick too. Is getting listings is really important for a lot of us right now, getting listings. So we see these areas where there's all these high earners, but you can still fail. These are areas that are proven concepts because we have so many high earners here that clearly the location works. But people still mess it up. So let me show you how so many people can still mess it up. We turn on the low earners. Look at how many are failing
Look at that.
right next to the ones that are winning. Does anyone have an idea of why that might be happening?
Oversupply.
Oversupply, somebody said?
Too
Yeah,
many in the area for the demand.
It could be a saturation issue. It could be a management issue. The manager could be doing a terrible job. It could be the person is using it too much. There's a lot of reasons why it might not be working, but the goal here is to identify how we can get one of these red dots at a better price than a green dot and turn it into a green dot.
Green dot.
So
Yeah.
I like to say red dot, green dot, but like our lowest earner into a higher earner, because this is all inventory right here. So all these people are at the bottom 20% of the market. They're not doing very well. This one's at a 1 cap. I mean, they're just not, they're struggling. So you can
If you
bet.
use this data, Erica, if somebody had this, if I called you tomorrow and said, I want to white label this, I want this data to help me. Can I go in the back end and see these addresses to create a campaign to say, hey, I represent, investor clients. Have you thought about selling your property?
So we're working on getting it into the tool, but we can provide you additionally with that list.
Okay.
So it's not in the app, but if that's something that you want, we can send you the addresses for all of these underperforming properties. Now you're going to have to either skip trace to get the phone
Yep.
number, things like
enough.
that, but we can provide you with all these addresses. And so if you're looking to get listing inventory of these struggling short-term rentals and you want to get ahead of them, this is a great place to do it. Or if you're trying to acquire that 2-bedroom cottage on the river for your client and there's just not a lot of inventory on the market right now on MLS, we can start looking for, some of the people that might be struggling that are 2 bedrooms. Like we can actually turn on bedroom size here and just kind of look for the product that we identified was doing really well. And see how much of it is out. So I just turned off everything that's not a 2-bedroom. And, we could start going after some of these, like this Riverview Retreat right here. This one's in the bottom 20% of the market when it comes to revenue. So, maybe sending an email, a mailing out to this person or calling them if you can get their phone number from skip tracing. There's a lot of things that agents are doing with our data to be able to get ahead of these. And 2, I also tell people it works in reverse. These are all your future buyers of more inventory. These are the ones that have figured it out. And these are the ones that bought the right product. If you get ahead of these guys right here, these are future clients for you. Anyone who's been in timeshare knows that they spend more money marketing to existing owners than they do to new business. And the reason they do that is because it's easier to get somebody who's happy with their product to buy more of it than it is to get somebody who's never had one before to buy it.
So that would be amazing if you could get the addresses of those.
Yeah,
let
we
them
have
know.
addresses for all of them.
We'll find you some more that are going to give you a great rate of your return. We have the
Yep.
data. Yeah.
Especially if you can identify what it is about their property and the other ones that are working and say, hey, maybe you bought 5 years ago, but things have changed. Let me show you what's working now. There's a lot of ways to approach it. If you want to get into the weeds on it. I want to just show you all of the things that your clients are going to have access to when they have your data tool. Historical data, looking back at how your market is growing over the years from 2019 till 2023. There's a lot of growth in your market. That's really great to show people that the market is growing, because that's an important metric. So we're only halfway into the year here, so don't worry that it looks like it's less. This is actually going to be closer to double once the rest of the year gets put in. So there should be actually an additional growth here again. It looks like we had a dip in income in 2022, and it should catch back up once the rest of this data hits. But 2021 was an exceptional year for you guys here. I think it was kind of that way everywhere. So they can dig into all of this historical data. Another interesting data point is that in 2019, the average stay length in Coeur d'Alene was 12 days. On these single family homes, and now it's 7 days. So people are staying for less time than they used to. And I don't know why, but that's a great way, that's a great data point for you to go create a story around. So our realtor.com data supplies us with the average sales price of your area. That's including the zip codes that we have for Coeur d'Alene. But what I tell you guys, all the agents, is that this is not, you know, a set number, because it's an average. You can always find properties for less and properties for more. And we do also show it by bedroom size. So right now we're looking at single family data. You can go here quickly and see which bedroom sizes are bringing in the most revenue. That doesn't always mean that they're going to be the most profitable, because remember, cap rate is tied to purchase price. So we can see maybe this 3 bedroom is only bringing in 67,000 on average, but the cost to buy it is more in alignment with the revenue than the cost to buy a 6 or a 7. And that could be why you were seeing such high cap rates on those 2 bedrooms, because the cost to acquire them is probably much more in alignment with the revenue. So it's so important when you're working with investors to have access to this data. And we see it play out over here. And when we go to the high earners, we can look at just the high earning data. So I'm going to go ahead and apply
And
that.
Erica, even if you think about this, if you could find somebody that bought this 2 bedroom property on the river, that is just, you know, renting it out, and already has a good cap rate, but you
Yep.
could somehow become creative and turn that into a 3 bedroom. You know, you go in and you could actually, you know, construct. Now you're going to even be a higher income earner. Or maybe that's some of the things that you could do when you're talking to the low income earner properties, is like, what could, if you purchase them and sold them to somebody else, what could somebody else do with that?
Absolutely, Carrie. That's it. Like, we look for how we hack the market. And when you have the data, you know how to hack the market. And doing those things where you're adding a bedroom is going to add more revenue because of X, Y, and Z. Like, we have that in here to support that. So another thing too, someone said oversupply of inventory. Like, we did see an oversupply of inventory, but most of it was coming from 3 bedroom and 2 bedroom single family homes. There's not a lot of studio 1 bedrooms or 4+ bedroom supply out there. So if you were going to make a play and you wanted to be in a less competitive landscape, now if you're on the river, that in and of itself, I think, separates you from all the other inventory that's not on the river. But if you weren't buying on the river and you wanted to set yourself apart, this is kind of how you would do it, is to buy a less competitive product than what's taking up almost, you know, 55% of the market, which are the 2 and 3. So that answers your saturation objection right there with investors. Is every market is saturated. It's about what product in the market is not saturated.
So Jeremy, can you chime into this? Because I see you guys in Branson all the time selling properties that are quite expensive, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, you know, bedrooms, whatever the case may be. And they seem to be the ones that give the highest rate of return. And people are willing to pay those higher prices because they're making tremendous money. And you talked about this, that when economies aren't good, or when people don't want to spend as much money, but they still won't forego vacations and memories with their family, it's still far less expensive for multiple families to go in on a large property than it is for them all to go into a hotel, for an example. And that's why these things still perform even in down markets.
Yeah, and that's the reason why you have to know the per night rent, or in the industry, they call it ADR, or average daily rate, of each individual unit. Because the interesting thing about the 10 bedrooms in Branson, Missouri, is that you don't have to book them out with major occupancy to make money, because they get $1,000 per night. And the same thing is occurring up in upstate New York. I mean, the amount of money you can get per night for some of these properties allows you to profit wildly with a shorter season, so that you can actually use those off-peak nights to profit if you want to. But if you're a multiple families getting in together and you want to use it multiple times a year, you tend to want to use them in those shoulder seasons or those off seasons. And you want to do everything you can to book those peak season nights and maximize the amount you can get, which is another cool byproduct of the short-term rental industry. Is, you know, people want to talk about how it's played out, right? They want to talk about how there's no opportunities left anymore. But what we've seen is the maturing of an asset class that is consolidating at the moment. I mean, have Has multifamily played out? I mean, has storage units played out? I mean, what you're finding is there might be a lot of inventory for a little while, but eventually the population keeps up with it. And so that's why in Branson, Missouri, that's why in some markets you're seeing the 10 bedrooms be really popular, is that somebody can literally own one property. They don't have to own, maybe they don't care about that rate of return and they don't want 10 2-bedroom properties. They just want 2 10-bedroom properties. It's a lot less work for somebody to do as a high paid part-time job to do that than it is to run 10 properties.
True. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, it's those multi-generational houses do great out there. So speaking of that, let's say we've identified a property for our investor and they have additional funds that they need to allocate towards renovating it or figuring out where to put that. Well, let's look at the data. We can look at the data and help us tell that investor what we need to be focused on and what we don't need to be focused on. So what I see here in the data, and this isn't actually the top earners. So I'm actually going to show just the top earners because what I want to know is what features do the top earners have that are making them successful, because that's what we need to be paying attention to. So if we look at the top earners, there's 2 things on here that are strategy, and the rest of this is all feature. So pets allowed and suitable for events, that's a strategy. Anybody can implement that strategy. Everything else is features. So for the features, some of those things need to be there before we buy, if it's relevant. Some of them we can do after. We need to know how important it is. So hot tub, for example, if my client is asking, is there a competitive advantage to me adding a hot tub? If they were in a 2-bedroom, I would say probably not, because we have a lot of successful 2-bedrooms that don't have a hot tub. However, if you put one in, you'd still have something that the other 94% of the 2-bedrooms don't have. So if you look at it that way, yeah, there could be a competitive advantage, but no, you don't need it to become a high earner. Is there a competitive advantage to being pet friendly? It looks like the smaller properties are definitely more pet friendly than the larger ones. And it could be just a lot of people traveling with their pets. Now, these are high earners. I would definitely want to make my property pet friendly if I had a smaller property, because I don't want to be one of the ones that are not. Now, that being said, there's some planning up front to think about. If you're selling them a unit that's going to be pet friendly, we want to make sure the HOA doesn't have any rules around breeds or what kind of, like fences that we can put up, because we are going to want to put up a fence. There's going to need to be a budget to rip out all the carpets. You don't want to have a pet friendly rental with carpets. So knowing this information allows us to plan from a financial perspective and a strategy perspective. Like here we see suitable for events. The 7-bedroom, about 8% of them are suitable. The 2-bedroom, about 12%. I really don't know what kind of events are happening out there, but there's a lot you can learn from just reading the reviews of the high earners. A lot of them will talk about wedding stays, family reunions, things like that. Some of the value add features we're going to be adding in the future is being able to give you all of that data that we're working on right now. So there's a lot of information here for you to digest. I'm not going to go into every chart because it would take us all day, but your client will. Your client will digest all of this information, and every single thing here is designed to help you sell better. And we train you how to do it. We don't just give you this and say we expect you to figure it out. This is advanced sales strategy. This is not your typical realtor selling a house up the street. I mean, this is for agents that really want a competitive edge working with investors, and we teach you how to use all of it. There's a couple more cool features I want to show you, and you can turn these features on and off for your investors. This is called the cap rate finder. This is probably one of the coolest things on the market right now for those of us trying to identify properties at a certain cap rate for our clients. So if we just want to get like a bird's eye view, and I'm loading every single piece of data in the country, so it's going to take a minute. Yours would actually load faster because it's a smaller amount. But if we want to look at like where are the best cap rate opportunities in my area or in the country, this is going to go ahead and show us based on any parameters we put in. So this is your buy box criteria, and then it's going to show you where to go buy based on your criteria. So I don't want to look at anything that's less than a 12% cap rate. And I want only single family homes because that's what I care about. And my data set is going to be at least 50 in the data set because I want it to be an accurate, sizable data set. So now it's giving me like a legend here of where to go buy, and it's giving me the buy box of how to achieve these cap rates in those markets. And the number on the right is showing you that this is a viable piece of data because there's 89 listings that went into creating this buy box that was able to get to a 26 cap. That means that out of the 89 listings that were analyzed in that market, this is the average cap rate for this property type. So that's why the larger the data set, the more reliable it is. So this is super cool if you're working with very advanced investors. I tell people like this is super advanced for your clients. I don't think they need access to this, but keeping it on the back end for you, being able to use it for marketing and reporting is super important. This is your investment. This allows you to underwrite and put a pro forma together within just seconds on any property that your client can send you. And it actually takes into account everything, the financing scenario, everything that's going to be a factor for them. So you don't have to sit around and do this on a spreadsheet, taking 8 hours trying to dig up all the information you would need to do this. So let me show you how this works. So I'm going to go to Zillow real quick, and I'm going to just pull up a random listing in your market. How do you spell Coeur d'Alene? Is it Cordy?
C-O EU. C-O, yep, there we go.
Here we go.
Sorry. Okay. I always get the O and the U confused. Okay, so let me just clear whatever settings I have here. And
Do my house?
sure. Give me an address. Is it on the market or no?
Yeah, it's on the market.
Yes,
Perfect. Give me an address.
304 West Davidson.
304 West Davidson.
Whoops. West Davidson. Is this it? Davidson Street, Coeur d'Alene?
Looks like it. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it a single family townhouse or condo?
Single family 4-2.
4-2, single family 4-2.
Okay, how many beds are we planning on putting in this 4-bedroom house for a short-term rental? About 6 or 7?
How many beds?
You could sleep, I don't know, I mean, 2 to a room, but yeah, 8.
8, 2 to a
8
room.
beds or sleeping 8?
And then plus 2 per sleeping room.
Okay, do 5, they said.
Yeah, do 5.
5 beds, how many are we sleeping?
10.
10, okay. And what do you have it listed for?
475.
475.
Okay. All right, and okay, so now we're gonna look at a financing scenario for whoever's gonna buy it. They're most likely gonna be putting 20% down, 30-year fixed, 8% interest rate. So I'm gonna just go through these features real quick, and I'm assuming it does not have bikes available.
No.
No,
Okay, so no bikes, no sauna, no restaurant, spa and wellness center.
nothing cool, he says.
Okay, so let me just take out the doorman. We should be good on the rest of it. No hot tub.
Nothing cool.
I mean, it sounds like it could be nice. All right, so let's see.
No tennis court.
No tennis court, that's too bad.
That's too
Pickleball
bad.
where it's at right now. Okay, so this is saying it's probably gonna run you, the NOI is probably gonna be somewhere around 45 to 51,000. It's categorizing it as a potential high earner. It's looking like it's predicting a potential rate of 453 per night at 64% occupancy. And it's based on these 10 comps down here. So we pulled 10 comps because we need to be in the same standards as your appraiser is going to be doing a 1007 for DSCR loans. So if you'd have to hit 53 to 57% occupancy just to break even with that mortgage. It's predicting it hitting 64, so you should be okay. It's putting your gross revenue at 106,000. That leaves you with an NOI between 44 and 51,000. That's a 9 to 10 cap with a 12 to 18% cash on cash return and $11 to $17,000 cash flow. And this is, if you added a bedroom, it would add an additional $44 a night. Hot tub would add 43. It gives you a breakdown of like adding certain things to add more revenue. And these are the comps it has. Now, let's just say you're looking through the comps and you're like, well, you know, that seems too high. I don't know why it's giving me that number instead of one of these lower numbers. Typically, it's going to pull the number that's closest to the closest comps. But let's just say we're like, I don't like that number. I disagree, or it should be higher, or it should be lower. Let's say in this case, we're like, okay, but can it still work if we don't hit that number? Let's go here. You can override it in a couple of seconds. You could put in, let's say you want to test it at 300 a night and you want to test it at 50% occupancy. And there's nothing wrong with doing this. You should always run multiple scenarios. And so this is where your AI is going to put it, but you should always run multiple to see where it works on the low end and where it could work on the high end. Just put those in, hit show results again. It's going to run the simulation for you all over with your numbers. Now we're doing in like seconds what it used to take me to do manually in a day. Like, I can't tell you how much of a time saver this is. So now it's bringing us in at a 23 to 26% or 23 to 26K in NOI, which we start to lose money in this scenario. So this is where it won't hold a mortgage. So it's good to run these scenarios because you want to be able to inform your client, like, look, if we're hitting those numbers of the 4 something a night at the 65% occupancy, we're gonna be okay. But if you're hitting closer to 300 with a 50% occupancy, we're gonna start losing money here. So you have to make sure your strategy is airtight. Your client's strategy is airtight, and that comes in to where we're working with the right manager. And I know, Jeremy, you can speak a little bit about that. But if the strategy is not on point, it doesn't matter if the potential's there. So strategy and potential have to go hand in hand.
And let me share my screen for just a moment,
Yeah.
if you don't mind, Erica, and I will jump on because Erica's, she's in a flying Tesla right now, and I want to get this all into a Ford F-150 for a second. And so what I've done is I've taken basically a similar property in Post Falls, and at a 1.6 purchase price with 20% down, you can see these numbers, right here. We're looking at, I've kind of simulated that, a similar cap rate. Well, I did, and something must have changed on it recently. But so basically, what I want to show you though is a couple other metrics here that are really going to matter to you as you begin to sell this to your clients. And one of them is the actual cash on cash return. So this is a 6.8% cash on cash return. Now, how many people could sell that? And how many people couldn't? I mean, some people are like, I can only sell a 15% return.
It depends on what the investor wants.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're not going to approach anybody and say, hey, why don't we take all of the risks on real estate for a 6.8% cash on cash return? You know what I mean? Just go put your money into a CD and you'll make the same amount of money. That's how everybody thinks. They don't really recognize the back end benefits of owning real estate. So here's how you can show them that a 6.8% cash on cash return really amounts to a whole lot more, because $18,000 of this property per year is that principal is being reduced every year by a renter paying this bill. And so principal reduction is a secret savings account for you and your investor, because you can't really touch it very easily, right? Real estate isn't really a super liquid investment. They need us, right, to be able to sell it. It's not super liquid. So we can't touch that, and that's good, especially now. If you got hot little hands and you want to, buy something as soon as it touches your fingers, you can't do it here. So this is that secret savings account, almost $20,000 a year that you or your investor is actually getting to keep every single year because you own this property. Now, let's say they're just on a tax bracket at 25%. In this scenario, you've made so much money that you haven't really sheltered your ordinary. Actually, no, you have. If it was a negative, it wasn't. So what this means is, at a 25% tax bracket, even though you earned $185,000 in gross income and only $132 in net income, you've actually sheltered $6,759 of your ordinary income that you don't have to pay taxes on because you own this property. Because through the depreciation deduction that the IRS allows you to take, you just made $7,000 additional that year that you can use to invest in more real estate. Now, we're not really going to factor appreciation in here, so I factor this separately. But even if we take out the appreciation, when we add this almost $20,000 and this almost $7,000 to the $22,000 in cash flow, which it's a lot of money. I wouldn't shake a stick at $22,000. So I don't care if it's a 6% return. I'm still owning real estate. It's still going up in value every year. I still get to enjoy Coeur d'Alene every year, and I'm actually making a 14% return.
Are you accelerating depreciation there?
No, I'm not. I'm not even doing that here. No.
Yeah.
So there's a ton more. This number could be way larger if they wanted it to.
Good question. Yeah.
So there's a ton of different ways that you can really begin to sell real estate to people. And you can start with offering them a free service of saying, hey, let me do an analysis on your property, on your current property. Let me do a
Mhm.
return on equity analysis for you,
Good
which
point.
is basically that same spreadsheet that I used. And you can run the property through there as if they were buying it that year. Because the interesting thing on return on equity is that every year you own a property, you're essentially buying it again.
Yeah.
So you've got to evaluate those numbers annually. And if you're the person in your marketplace that can easily talk to somebody and say, hey, let me do a return on equity for you. And then you do that and you can show them that they can actually earn more money by buying one or two additional properties, and you know what cap rate they want, or you know what cash on cash return they're looking for, you can analyze all the properties in your marketplace within seconds and get back to them same day. Like,
Which
wow,
is
this same day
exactly,
too.
which would be why we would be going to our current database and talking to them about why purchasing a couple more properties, but using this data. So it's not just an opinion or hypothetical, but this is actually data driven. Let me show you why and how. And now you go find people who want to invest in real estate in your current database. Can you talk a little bit about the midterm, as people are going to probably have to be starting to head out soon? I'm just
Sure. Oh,
curious about what you guys are thinking and what you're seeing in midterm rental, because there are a lot of short-term rental investors. And there is a lot of, when we had our short-term rental, we did do midterm rental pretty much through the off season, almost every year, pretty easily. But I don't know what the data is saying about that in our area. I'd love to know now.
Yeah, oh, that's great. I'm glad you brought that up because I almost forgot it. Let me just go ahead and see if I can pull this real quick. It doesn't want to take the way I spell it.
Restrict more of the short.
Exactly. Yeah, we do have a lot of restrictions, or people are trying to restrict short-term rental. Trying to, there's a big alliance that is fighting it. So I'm sure it'll end up getting worked out, but that is a challenge right now. So midterm rentals are a good option for people too.
Yeah, totally. And this is all your midterm rental activity so far. There's not a lot of competition in that sector.
Whoa.
So like if you were to pivot and your investor was scared to jump in because of what's happening, the real MVP here is going to be your midterm rental, because that's what's going to allow you to close them. Well, you
Yeah.
can say, look, we can try using it as a midterm rental first, or we could start as a short-term rental, but there's opportunity to pivot as a midterm rental. These are your most successful midterm rentals. I can count them.
Competition, you guys.
Like on one hand, there's no competition here and they're doing really well. I mean, this one's like always occupied. This one is, I guess you have a beach there, it sounds like. This
Yes.
one is a cute little cottage. So the midterm rentals are occupied by either traveling nurses, insurance, relocation stays, construction projects that are happening.
Yep.
There's a lot of midterm rentals there, but you have opportunities here with the midterm rentals.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to show them on a map, like where these are and what they look like. There's not a lot of competition. That's a great pivot strategy. And because we're getting the furnished finder data, we're able to find a lot more of them than your other data sites. So you'll be able to access more data than your clients will anywhere. So definitely, like, you have your short-term rentals, your midterm rentals, and we're working on getting the long-term rental data in too for you guys. So that's definitely a strategy. I want to talk about one other thing, because this is a lead gen tool as well. Like, let's talk about generating leads. This is similar to what Jeremy showed you, but it doesn't have the tax benefits on it. This is a manual pro forma where if your client saw a property on Zillow at 2 o'clock in the morning and wanted you to analyze it, that's a big no way from me, because I'm tired. I'm not going to analyze the property at 9 o'clock at night or skip dinner to do it. I'd give them access to the tool and they can do it themselves 24/7. They have these tools. Investors are addicted to these tools. This is a great way to market too. Like, get my free investment analyzer tool, get access to my short-term rental performa. And those are reasons to get people to sign up for your tool. Everybody that signs up for your tool is a lead. So you can use this with your existing clients, but you can also use all of this as lead magnets to generate new business. As soon as they sign up, you're tracking that lead and it's going into your database. There's a whole CRM in the back. Well, it's not a CRM, it's a light lead tracker that connects to whatever CRM you use. So we have agents that are generating 50 leads a week in Facebook groups using this. So all these Facebook groups that are out there where agents or investors are in there, what market should I invest in? And, where should I put my, where should I buy on this coast and that coast and this state and that state? I jump on all those conversations and I use it as an opportunity to capture that lead with my tool. And we have agents doing that all the time. As a matter of fact, when you join our tool every Tuesday, you get to be a part of our advanced training where we teach you to do all of this stuff. It does translate into Spanish and Portuguese. For those of you working with any like non-local investors that are from South America, they can go straight to your Calendly. Like there's so much more that you can do with this tool, and you control all the access to it on the back end. For example, this is where all your leads get tracked, you know, how often they log in, so you can see who's most active, and then you can connect this to Zapier. But I want to jump back to our presentation because I know we're running to the end of it, and I want Jeremy to talk about how you guys can get involved in this program and start working with us. Jeremy, I'm going to kick it off to you, and I'm going to show you guys what the cost of getting involved is, and we have a special discount for you for anyone who wants to take advantage today.
Yeah, absolutely. We basically, we just want to give you guys the ability to jump into this if you want to at kind of a ridiculous price. So we're going to take like 46% off for you guys if you want it. So it's normally $149. We've got a promo code. You just enter it in. It's Secret Mini, and for your one market, and it's $79. So instead of $149, it's only $79. And we also want to, we don't want to stop you guys if you are in the place where you're like, okay, I don't know if I'm really quite ready for all of this data yet. Don't worry, because when you jump into this, if this is something you decide you want to do, we're going to show up in full force, and we're not going to let you fail. I've made that promise to every real estate agent that I've ever coached. So I'm going to give you a copy of my book. I'm going to give you a copy of my workbook. I'm going to give you a copy of my intro level masterclass, which is 13 videos. It's the first 13 things you need to know before you begin selling short-term rentals. And we want to give you guys the ability to find all of those tired hosts in your marketplace, all of those red dots. So for signing up, we want to be able to just give you that list that Cari talked about. So you'll actually know where to market for all of your listings. And you'll also know all the top earners as well, and they'll be categorized for you. So you'll have a ton of work cut out for you for marketing for the next 6 months. And so that's that struggling host list. You're going to get that. And then, of course, access to the data suite. Like Erica said, we're not the kind of people that just want to sell you something and then we're behind a firewall. You actually have access to the founder and the CEO of the company, because we want to build something great that's based on feedback from agents, because we want this tool to be for agents by agents. So we appreciate the opportunity to talk about this thing, which we're so in love with you guys. It's really 2 years ago, we didn't have this tool. We were forced into that, F-150. So now we've got that, and we've got everything else, and you can start however you want. And we're always here to kind of help guide you at whatever level you're at. So thank you very much, Cari. I really appreciate the opportunity.
thanks, Cari.
Awesome. You guys are awesome. This is really good. I mean, does anybody have any questions lingering? I know we asked some, but
Is the full market the national one, or what's the difference between them?
Yeah, so the full market is like if you want more access than just Coeur d'Alene, it's not the national, but you'll get up to three markets the size of Coeur d'Alene. So when you log in, you'll be able to add Coeur d'Alene plus maybe if you want the market next door or the market, below you, like it's up to 3 markets. And it's not a zip code, it's a city. So it's all the zip codes that are within that city. So it's a pretty good amount of data. And that is $179 with the discount code. Just make sure you guys have these discount codes written down, because if not, it'll show you the market price. The mini market, it'll definitely get you all the data for Coeur d'Alene. So if you want to start out with that and join our trainings on Tuesday, this is what I recommend. If you feel like it's a lot to take in, start with just a small amount to begin with. Start with the $79 and join our Tuesday calls. Like, we do incredible training with this every Tuesday. We have agents from all over tuning in on Tuesdays, learning so much. Do that for a month, get used to it. And when you feel comfortable with what you're doing with the data and you want to start to scale out with it, then you can upgrade your subscription. If you already are comfortable with data and you want more access, take advantage of the current discount. But if you want to start small, that's definitely the way to go. But make sure you attend our trainings, because you're going to get way more than just $79 for a tool out of it.
so quick question. When Coeur d'Alene was put in, it looked like you also had some of the surrounding areas like Post Falls and Hayden and those areas. So I assume that's all included, right? Because we have Or would we have to put all of those small markets that are around Coeur d'Alene in as separate markets?
So I'll show you the zip codes that Coeur d'Alene is.
Yeah, thank
is
you. That'd be helpful to know.
Yeah, so it's gonna give you,
So
let
it
me
can be
go,
a separate market, probably.
yeah.
Yeah.
We kind of consider one market anything less than 5,000 properties. So
Yeah.
if Coeur d'Alene and Post Falls is essentially one market, then
Pretty much.
that's something that would be included. Both of those zip codes would be included in that mini market.
Pretty
is
much.
what-
Yeah, so there's like pretty much 3 markets. It would be Coeur d'Alene, Hayden, Post Falls. They're just kind of like one market.
Yeah,
This is technically a market, yeah, so, and Rathdrum, so it looks like you're taking all of this. So actually, it leaks into Spokane Valley all the way to Medical Lake?
well, I have national data
Oh.
in there,
Oh,
but I think, I think this is gonna, you could probably get, because there's not a lot here.
Yeah.
You could probably for sure get, if you wanted Spokane and Liberty Lake and all that, I don't know if you want that,
Yeah,
but you could definitely you could go up to Sandpoint for sure. I mean, like, there's not a whole lot of data here, so.
Yeah, we could include all of these in a mini market. So because all of
Yeah.
this is less than $5,000. So you're actually getting a pretty
goes
great
with Spokane,
scope.
too.
It's the benefit of using the tool in a smaller market. You actually get broader data than say like Orlando. You would just get Orlando because there's so many properties in that one area.
Yeah, there's only 1,600 active rentals in Coeur d'Alene, so that only is like, you still have room for 3,500 more.
Yeah.
And so that's only in 2 zip codes, 83814, 83815. So
Yep.
there's definitely room to add. What's the one next door? Is it, what's that say, Price River?
Post Falls.
Post
Oh,
Falls.
83854.
All right, let's see. Post
Yeah.
Falls. Yeah, that would be considered one. And so, yeah, let's see here. That would be only 199. Yeah, you could definitely get in the small subscription size, like pretty much like everything you see here, all the way up to this area. You'd have a lot of data for that.
Yeah.
And so-
Wait, there's one.
yeah,
That'd be awesome. I mean, that would
Yeah.
be helpful because we are a smaller market, so our geography is just a little bit more spread out, you know?
yeah. So what I do is, I would do the 79 and then we'll come in, Cari, just
Okay.
let us know who signs up on your team. We'll come in and add those for you.
Okay.
Because I'm not sure that our system will add all these additional markets because based on the size, I'll
Yep.
come in and do it. So
Okay.
you tell me which ones you want and we'll make it happen.
Okay, cool. I'll email you whoever signs up just to make sure we're on the same page. Okay,
Yeah,
amazing.
sounds good. Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for having
guys
us
so
on today.
much.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
betcha.
yeah, my pleasure. Good luck, everybody. Have a great day. Stay warm.
Bye, guys.
Bye.